Hey guys, Shot Got Picks here. Hope everyone's doing well, having a great week. We're here to be breaking down UFC Seattle, Song versus Cejudo, going over every single fight on the card, the best bets, and which fights to avoid. Before we get into it, let's talk about last week because we absolutely had a great one. We went 8 for 12 overall on picks, and we hit 3 for 3 on best bets, cashing in over 6 plus units. Elijah Smith opening up at negative 210, going down to negative 140. I gave it out on the Patreon at negative 140, but I had to double down on negative 105. With Angela Hill, she actually won a split decision. The one time I pick against her, the one time I actually think she lost. Every single time I pick, for her to win, she gets robbed by the judges, And I also went with another little bit of a risky pick with, Cater. But man, it's just clear he's not the same fighter anymore against those top guys anymore. But this week, we're looking to keep it rolling. I've already got 3 bets locked in, and if you want early access to my bets, check out my Patreon in the link in the bio. There's a 7-day free trial for those who are interested and want to start. And a reminder, please hit that like button. It takes you 2 seconds, but it helps me out so much. If you like the content, hit that subscribe button. Other than that, let's get right into it. For the first fight in the card, we got Modestas, Bukauskas versus Raffael, Cerqueira. Modestas comes into this 16-6. Opened up at a negative 325 favorite, 31 years old, 6'3" with a 78-inch reach. Raffael comes into this 11-1. He opens up as a plus 260 dog, 34 years old, 6'3" and a 76-inch reach. With Modestas, he has one job: keep this fight at range. He has a 78-inch reach and a switch stance. That gives him a lot of tools to be able to frustrate aggressive pressure type of fighters. And if he plays this fight smart, he should be able to pick apart Cerqueira from the outside. But the big issue here regarding Modestas is his defense. His defense has always been very sketchy, and his very low volume type of style sometimes lets his opponents walk him down without any resistance. If he's able to control the distance and turn this fight into a slow-paced one, I think this is his fight to lose. But if Cerqueira can force this into a wild exchange, this fight is going to get very scary very fast for Modestas bettors. Raffael, while we literally know almost nothing about the guy, this guy's 34 years old. He's never gone the distance. He's fought only cans his entire career. Outside of the 50 seconds in his UFC debut where he got absolutely flatlined by Ibo Aslan, there's literally no tape on the guy. So we really don't know what he actually can do. But what we do know is that his only path to victory is to be an absolute madman and being extremely aggressive. If he lets Modestas settle into his rhythm, I don't see a path to victory for him. I think this fight is extremely sketchy because Modestas definitely has skills, but he also has holes in his games, that has never seemed to have been fixed. He throws low volume where he just kind of loves to stand there and feint instead of actually throwing his jabs. He has bad exits. He constantly drops his hands. He leaves his chin wide open in the air when he's backing up. And he has a very questionable chin. We've seen him get rocked by fighters like Pauga, Prachnio, and he got knocked out cold by Crute and Petrino. If Raffael has any striking ability at all, he has an absolute chance here to land something big. I think Modestas should absolutely win this fight. He's a more technical striker. He's proven at the UFC level, and he's actually got a good ground game, which we've seen nothing from Raffael. But let's be honest, Modestas absolutely loves making things harder for himself. He needs to keep this fight clean, and if he does, I figure he finds a finish before round 3. I'm figuring round 2, if Raffael charges in while there's a small chance that he gets, Modestas, that he catches Modestas slipping, there's just zero tape on Raffael, so we really don't know what his skill set is, So I do know that Modestas' chin is questionable. I get it, and so I could see why people are on the Cerqueira side. It's just I can't be on that I can't be on that side. I just can't. But the best bets are definitely going to include probably the under 2.5 rounds. I don't see it this fight. Or the fight ends by finish, by knockout. I think this ends in the second round or even the first round. Give me Modestas round 2 knockout. Up next on the card, we got Nick Klein versus Mansur Abdul-Malik. Nick Klein comes into this 6-1 plus 410 underdog, 29 years old, 6'1" with a 77-inch reach. Mansur Abdul-Malik comes into this undefeated 7-0, a big favorite at negative 560 opening. Now he's probably like at negative 900 now. He's 27 years old, 6'2" with an 80-inch reach. Now, with Nick Klein, he's a grappler. His whole game plan is shoot for a double leg, look for a real naked chokehold, and really hope that it works. Really, I think that's really it. That's the entire Klein experience. I mean, yeah, he's got some decent wins, and he did pull off a wild 30-second submission on the Dana White Contender Series. But let's be real. That was like a meme sub, you know? He just happened to be there at the right place at the right time at a short notice shot, really. His wrestling isn't great, his control isn't dominant, and his striking, it looks like he's underwater kind of thing, you know? I hate to be the guy, but when you look at him, when you watch his tape, he's not that good on the feet. And when you talk about Mansur Abdul-Malik, this guy is an absolute freak athlete. He has an 80-inch reach. He's explosive as hell. He has crazy raw power. He's definitely a rookie for sure, but his physicality alone make him a nightmare for absolutely anybody. And coming into this, he does have a wrestling background. He has a high volume striking at 6.61 strikes per minute. Crazy power. If he touches you, you're very much in trouble. And he does scramble very well, because he's very hard to hold down when grappling. The one knock on Mansur Abdul-Malik is his experience for sure. He's still putting things together, of course, but against Klein, I think this is not going to matter at all. He's green as well. But this fight is definitely a nightmare for Klein. I think it's a nightmare for anybody. Mansur Abdul-Malik is going to be huge here, for anybody. He's going to be big here in the UFC. And really, Klein doesn't really do well under the pressure, you know? His only loss, he got overwhelmed when standing, and he's facing a guy who pushes a crazy pace, throws bombs, and doesn't let you breathe. So this is not looking great for Nick Klein. And even if Klein somehow gets a takedown, it's not like Abdul-Malik is helpless on the ground. He's very big, he's very strong, and he scrambles very well. Klein is not some elite control guy either. He's more of a cage-pushing, top-control wrestler than someone who dominates on the mat, and that's not enough to neutralize Abdul-Malik here, especially not his athleticism. And let's also not forget that Klein is from the same gym as Wes Schultz, and Wes Schultz is the guy that Abdul-Malik absolutely ran through in a Dana White Contender Series, and I think that their skill sets are basically the exact same thing, and that's a huge red flag. I think this plays out very simply, that Abdul knocks him out in the first round. I think the only way that Klein wins is that he drags it late and gets in sub, and I don't see that possibly really ever happening. I think Abdul-Malik is going to skyrocket to negative 1,000, even though I think that line is crazy, but he's just a freak, you know, and I think he's gonna maul him in the first round. Give me Abdul-Malik by first round knockout. Up next on the card, we got Ricky Simon versus Javid Basharat. Simon comes into this 20-6, opens up as a plus 230 underdog, 32 years old, 5'6" with a 70-inch reach. Basharat comes into this 14-1, opens up as a negative 285 favorite, 29 years old, 5'9" with a 69-inch reach. I think this is actually a really solid fight. When you break it down, it feels like a great matchup for Basharat, really, in my opinion. At first, it might seem like a tough test for him, you know, right after losing his undefeated record, but this could actually be a fight that makes him look really good, actually. Simon used to be a big problem. His wrestling was strong, his pace was ridiculous, he can overwhelm guys with his pressure, but lately, he just hasn't looked good at all. He can argue that he's lost 11 straight rounds in MMA, and he's been fighting killers, I get it. But it's just not that he's just losing, it's how bad he's looked when losing. His wrestling isn't working like it used to. His takedowns look slower. And even when he's getting guys down, he doesn't hold them there. His striking has always needed work. And now he just looks lost on the feet now, you know? He used to mix things up a lot better. But lately, if he can't get an early takedown, he just stands there looking very much confused. His last 3 fights were against top guys, I get it. So maybe it's just him being outmatched, but it's hard to ignore how little success he had. Basharat is a really good fighter who just made a really terrible mistake in his last fight. He was in complete control of the first 2 rounds. Then for some reason, he started panic wrestling. He got clipped and lost a round, and by round 3, he was completely gassed. He threw that fight away, but it's not like Zahabi was outclassing him. Basharat just fought like an idiot, really, you know? Normally, he fights really smart. He stays composed and makes really good reads. As long as he doesn't fight dumb again, he's got a really good shot at winning this fight. This fight is kind of like his matchup with Tony Gravely. Simon is basically a better version of Gravely. Short, stocky, strong wrestling, decent power, but his striking is pretty trash, and he depends on a lot on his takedowns. If you watch that fight, Basharat completely shut Gravely down. Simon will land some takedowns, but they aren't going to do much, in my opinion. His shots already look slow, and even when he gets the guys down, his top control isn't great anymore. He's not a submission threat, and most guys just get back up. Basharat has really good takedown defense, and even if he gets taken down, he's not going to just be stuck there. On top of that, Simone can be taken down himself. Basharat's wrestling is actually really solid, and I wouldn't be surprised if he mixes in his own takedowns just to throw Simone off. You know, the biggest gap in this fight is absolutely the striking. It's not even close. Simone has never been a good striker, and now it's even more. It's worse, you know. He throws wild, looping overhand big hooks, and ever since he got flatlined by Song Yadong, he's a lot more hesitant. Meanwhile, Basharat is super clean on the feet. He's worked behind his jab, mixes in front kicks, and throws really crisp counters. He's not the hardest hitter, but he doesn't need to be when he's much more, you know, technical. And I think Basharat's he's really good at the range, you know. Ultimately, I got Basharat by decision. I think this plays out like the Gravely fight. I think he's going to show us that he's good. And I mean, Simone's on a 3-fight skid. I can't back him anymore, you know. But like I said, he's fighting top 3 guys. I get it, but I just can't back Simone anymore. Give me Basharat by decision. Up next on the card, we got Nursulton Ruziboev versus Eric McConico. Ruziboev comes into this 34-9-2, opens up as a -300 favorite, 31 years old, 6'5" with a 76-inch reach. McConico comes into this 9-2-1, plus 240 underdog, 34 years old, 6'0", and a 75-inch reach. Now, I think this is one of those weird short notice fights where it feels like the UFC is trying to set up Ruziboev for an easy win, but just because that's the plan doesn't mean it's guaranteed, of course. Ruziboev is a huge middleweight, 6'5", 76-inch reach. He fights like someone who knows he's bigger than everyone else. He doesn't like long fights. He likes quick, violent ones. When guys try to close the distance on him, he throws something wild and puts them to sleep. His knockout win over Bruno Ferreira was absolutely brutal, but the real question is whether he's really actually a good fighter or just big and powerful. His wrestling is bad. If he gets put on his back, he has absolutely no idea what to do. His striking is wild. He overextends constantly and throws himself off balance and leaves openings everywhere. His defense is super sketchy and he gets hit way too much. His stance is awkward. His technique is sloppy, but he makes it work because he's massive and he hits like a truck. But his opponent can take advantage of those flaws like Joaquin Buckley did. They can make Ruziboev look beatable, you know? McConico doesn't have the name value, but his striking is actually really solid. He's got a clean kickboxing style, a good boxing base, and he pushes a fast pace. In terms of pure technique, he's much better striker than Ruziboev. The bigger issue is with McConico is his chin. He's getting rocked in almost every one of his fights. He's been stunned by fighters like Pitolo and Felipe. And these guys are way smaller, way slower, and don't hit anywhere near as hard as Ruziboev. That's a massive red flag. If those guys are hurting him like that, one clean shot from Ruziboev can put him out cold. The clearest path to victory for McConico is through wrestling. Ruziboev is absolutely awful off his back. So if McConico can get him down and hold him there, he can make this a really ugly fight and grind out a win. The problem is McConico's wrestling isn't great either. And most of his recent success has been against lower level competition. Ruziboev isn't a good wrestler, but he's freakishly strong and he scrambles well, you know, and even when guys take him down, he uses his size to reverse positions or even get back up. This can get interesting if it goes past the first round. McConico's gas tank is really solid. He pushes a high pace and keeps coming forward. Ruziboev burns a lot of energy early, and if this fight somehow makes it into the later rounds, there's a good chance we see him slow down very badly. You know, McConico's best shot is to drag this into the deeper waters and take him out, take it over late, you know? But McConico, he needs to stay disciplined, and, you know, he has bad defense, and he has a shaky chin, so I just don't see it. Give me Ruziboev by knockout first round. I think that's the only way you can see this going here. I don't know how you can lay -300 on Ruziboev. I guess you just find a way, just go by knockout, I guess. I don't know how you can put -300 on Ruziboev. I just can't do it. Ruziboev by knockout, first round. That's my pick. Up next on the card, we got Ion Cutelaba versus Ibo Aslan. Cutelaba comes into this 18-10-1. He opens up as a +115 underdog, 31 years old, 6'1", 75-inch reach. Aslan comes into this 14-1, opened up as a -135 underdog, 28 years old, 6'3", and a 77.5-inch reach. This is one of those fights where you just know someone's going to get knocked out, you know? These two are wild, aggressive guys who love to throw bombs, don't care much for defense, and will absolutely stand in the pocket and swing until one of them drops. There's just no way this fight goes to the distance. A lot of people are sleeping on Aslan, and honestly, I get it. The UFC is clearly trying to build him up, but some fans aren't sold on his hype, and I get it. He's not super technical, but when you have a 100% finish rate, you don't always need to be, One clean shot is all you take is all it takes sometimes. When you look at the striking matchup, Aslan has the clear edge. Both guys are reckless as hell, but Cutelaba style makes him way more vulnerable. He's been knocked out multiple times by heavy hitters like Ankalaev. Ankalaev slept him twice. Kennedy and Zachukwu put him out. Johnny Walker did the same. Every time he fights a guy with power, it ends up very badly for him. Aslan throws a ton of volume and actually lands at a solid rate. He lands 8.34 significant strikes per minute at a 50% accuracy. That means he's not throwing wild. He's landing clean, hard shots. Cutelaba, on the other hand, rushes in recklessly. He blitzes forward with his chin straight up in the air, throwing wild hook with no setup. And that's the exact kind of mistake that's going to get him caught against Aslan. If Cutelaba fights like he always does, storming forward, swinging wild, leaving his chin exposed, Aslan's going to crack him and put him out. The big question is whether Cutelaba is actually going to wrestle. His wrestling is legit. And if he actually commits to it, he could make this fight a lot easier on himself. But he lands about 4 takedowns per fight and has some weird, unpredictable trips that catches guys off guard. Aslan hasn't fought a wrestler as aggressive as Cutelaba before. So if Cutelaba actually sticks to a game plan, he could grind this fight out. But that's the problem. He never, ever does. Even when wrestling is the obvious path to victory for him, Cutelaba gets drawn into these brawls. That's exactly why he gets knocked out. If he tries to stand and trade with Aslan, it's only a matter of time before he eats something big. Even if he does land some takedowns, his control isn't great. In recent fights, he's been reversing himself, pulling guys on top of him, making bad grappling mistakes. If he can't hold Aslan down, he's right back to striking, and that's where he gets into big trouble. If this fight somehow makes it past first round, cardio becomes a big factor. Cutelaba's gas tank is all over the place. Sometimes he gasses in 5 minutes. Other times he pushes hard into round 2 or 3. There's no consistency. Aslan's cardio isn't amazing either, but we've seen him push through the fatigue before. His rematch against Anton Turkali showed that even when he's tired, he still lands big shots. If Cutelaba starts slowing down, and Aslan's power is going to start taking over. A tired, slobby Cutelaba walking into counters, I think that's a big highlight reel waiting to happen. Give me Aslan by KO. I think he's just a cleaner striker here. He lands more often, and Cutelaba just does a lot of stupid shit and leaves himself wide open. He could wrestle, but I just think Aslan knocks him out in the first round. Give me Aslan by first round knockout. Up next on the card, we got Andre Fili versus Melquizael Costa. Fili comes into this 24-11. He opens up as a -110, near even, so basically coin flip. He's 34 years old, 5'11", 74-inch reach. Costa comes into this 21-7, coin flip odds, 28 years old, 5'10" with a 71-inch reach. This is a fun fight. Both guys are really up and down with their performances. Fili's the kind of fighter who can look amazing one night and completely lost the next. One fight, he's outclassing Daniel Pineda and making it look absolutely easy. Then the next fight, he's walking into the exact same jab over and over and over and over again against Joe Anderson Brito and getting absolutely blasted. Lately, Fili hasn't looked as sharp. His chin isn't holding up as it used to. He got knocked out cold by Dan Ige, and his fight against Bill Algeo was way closer than it should have been. His defense is getting sloppier, and he takes way too many clean shots now. His boxing isn't clean, but he makes fights harder on himself by overextending, getting wild, and just not being careful enough with his defense. Costa has, on the other hand, had a really rough start in the UFC, but his win over Austin Lingo made him look really, really good. That fight might be very misleading because I don't think Lingo is that good at all. I think he's pretty trash, actually, but Costa still showed some really slick striking. His kicks are clean, his body work is solid, and throws some nice combinations. The issue with Costa is his hands. His boxing isn't great. He doesn't throw in big combinations. He mostly throws in short bursts and doesn't carry serious knockout power. But the way Fili's defense has been looking, Costa might land way more than he actually should. Fili's clear path to victory is wrestling and nonstop pressure. Costa, doesn't have great takedown defense. We've already seen him struggle against strong grapplers like Thiago Moises. Fili is really good at mixing in takedowns. He's landing over 2 per fight and defends most of the takedowns against him. If he wrestles early and often, Costa is gonna, gets stuck defending instead of throwing strikes. The issue with Fili is that he likes to brawl himself too, even when he doesn't need to. If he stands and trades too much, Costa is faster, he's sharper, and he's good at landing clean counters. We already saw that. We already saw what happened against Dan Ige. You know, Fili can't afford to be eating big shots, and Costa is accurate enough to make it a big problem. Costa is really slick on the feet. His southpaw stance, his speed, and ability to finish fights make him dangerous if Fili doesn't fight smart. In his last fight against Shailen Nerdembeke, he showed that, you know, he can make mid-fight adjustments and finish the fight. You know, he's also got sneaky submission game. So if Fili rushes in carelessly, he can get clipped or even get caught in a choke. Fili should win this if he wrestles and controls the pace. His experience, pressure, and grappling should allow him to grind out rounds and keep Costa from getting comfortable. But if he makes it harder than it needs to be, Costa has the speed, accuracy, and counterpunching to turn this into a way tougher fight than it should be. I think the best bets include over 2.5 rounds. The fight goes to decision, and whoever you pick, because it's a coin flip, to win by decision. You know, I got Fili. I think he wins by grappling, but that's if he uses it. And if he doesn't use it, he's gonna lose. You know, I like Fili. I really do. I think the nickname Touchy Fili is a really fucking cool name. But it's gonna be tough if he fights not smart. He just needs to fight smart. I got Fili by decision. Up next on the card, we got Alonzo Menefield versus Julius Walker. Menefield comes into this 15-5-1. He opens up as a -170 favorite, 37 years old, 6'0" with a 76-inch reach. Walker comes into this undefeated 6-0, opens up as a +140 underdog, 25 years old, 6'4" with an 81-inch reach. Menefield is a pure power puncher, while Walker is a smart, well-rounded fighter who knows how to break guys down over time. Menefield fights like a ticking time bomb, and that's exactly why they call him atomic. When he lands, it's usually game over. He's got 10 career knockouts, and his best performances come when he forces opponents into wild brawls and overwhelms them with pure aggression. The problem with Menefield is that rangy, technical guys have exposed him over and over again. Carlos Ulberg put him out in just 12 seconds, and Mirzakhanov broke him down with movement and counters. His gas tank is also a huge liability. If he doesn't get an early finish, his numbers drop hard. His defense gets sloppy, and he becomes way more predictable. His takedown defense is solid at 85%, but if he actually gets taken down, he struggles to get back up. Walker is the complete opposite. He's a tactical finisher. He's not a wild brawler. He's undefeated, long, and methodical. He controls range really well. He fights smart and uses his jabs, his kicks to keep opponents at distance, and picks his moments to shoot for takedowns or counter. His biggest advantages are obvious. His massive 81-inch reach, which means he can pick Menefield apart from a safe distance. His grappling is levels above Menefield's. His last 5 fights all ended on the ground, with 3 by knockout from the ground and pound and 2 by submission. His fight IQ is really solid. He doesn't just steamroll low-level guys. He's beaten Bevon Lewis and Myron Dennis, both solid fighters, and forced them into bad mistakes before taking them down and dominating. The big question with Walker is his chin. He's never fought anyone with Menefield's level of power, so we don't know how well he holds up if he gets clipped early. For Menefield to win, he needs to make this a brawl immediately. If this fight turns into a clean technical striking match, he loses, in my opinion. He needs to close the distance fast and land a big shot before Walker finds his rhythm. He also has to take advantage of Walker's lack of UFC experience. We don't know how Walker handles real UFC level pressure, and Menefield has to test that early. His only real path to victory is round 1 knockout, in my opinion. For Walker, the game plan is simple. Stay long, stay smart, and survive the early storm. You know, I think that's obvious. He has huge reach advantage, and if he establishes his jab early, Menefield is going to get frustrated and start swinging wild. That's when Walker can get a takedown and completely change the fight. If this gets past the first round, Menefield's gas tank will fall apart, I think, you know? And Walker will take over, I think, easily, too. He just has to drag him down, drain his cardio, and make him pay for his bad conditioning. I just think he needs to get past that first round, because Menefield is always live for a first round knockout. But history tells us that more technical and more well-rounded guys are the ones who beat him. Walker has the tools to frustrate him and extend this fight and dominate once Menefield starts to slow down, if he gets there, of course. And that's the big if, of course. You know, if you're on the Menefield side, you're banking on that knockout. That's just what I think, of course. You know, I got Walker. I think he's a very overall well-rounded fighter, and he's undefeated. He's the younger guy. He has that, he's taller by 4 inches. crazy massive reach advantage. This guy's good, man. And Menefield is not that good anymore. He's 37. Give me Walker by knockout. Up next on the card, we got Gene Silva versus Melsik Baghdasaryan. Gene Silva is 14-2. Opens up as a big favorite. -575. I think he's going to get higher. I think he's like -650 now. He's 28 years old, 5'7" with a 69-inch reach. Melsik is 8-2, plus 425 underdog, 33 years old, 5'9", 70-inch reach. Melsik is one of the fastest, most technical strikers in the division. His kickboxing is super clean, no wasted movements, effortless speed, and he's got sharp power in both of his hands and his kicks. He's not the type to throw a ton of volume, but when he lands clean and hard. His fight against Tucker Lutz showed how dangerous he is. Even when he's not the one pushing forward, he can turn a fight around instantly. The issue with Melsik is his gas tank. He's explosive early, but after the first round, his speed and movement start to fall off very hard. That's a serious problem against someone like Gene Silva, who's absolutely known to he's just an absolute madman. I mean, he comes with absolute pressure, you know. He doesn't just push the pace. He completely drowns the guys in it, you know. In his fight against Drew Dober, this is a perfect example, you know. He came forward nonstop, mixing in elbows, his knees, just overwhelming him with constant offense, you know. He can strike from all ranges, and unlike Melsik, he never ever slows down. Melsik is used to being the guy who's dictating the pace, but that's not going to be the case here. You know, Silva is going to be, you know, in his face from the jump, and if things get too messy, he can easily take it to the ground. Melsik's grappling barely exists, and while Silva loves to stand and trade, he can easily take this down, and I think the takedowns are absolutely available whenever he wants them. Melsik is definitely dangerous early, but Silva's pressure, cardio, and power will take over as the fight goes on. Expect Melsik to have some early success, but once this gets into the second round, Silva's going to start to break him down, and I think badly too. I think he's just going to drown him after the second round, you know? I think he's going to knock him out in the third round. I think this fight doesn't go the distance. Both guys are very aggressive. Melsik's cardio is going to fade very hard. Silva's pressure is going to take over. The best bet, I think, is that the fight doesn't go the distance. The best fights include that the fight doesn't go the distance, and if you want more value, that Silva fights ends inside the distance. I think at -160, I think that's another solid play. But the safest read is absolutely that Silva wins by money line. But of course, that's -600. So what can you say about that? But those are my plays. I got Silva. I got Silva round 3 knockout. Up next on the card, we got Rob Font versus Gene Matsumoto. Font comes into this 21-8. He opens up as a plus 130 underdog, 37 years old, 5'8" with a 71.5-inch reach. Matsumoto comes into this undefeated, 16-0, opens up as a -175 favorite, 25 years old, 5'6" with a 68.5-inch reach. Font is a really, really good boxer with one of the best jabs in the division, and if he keeps this fight standing, he's going to be a big problem. Matsumoto is a young, dangerous submission specialist who only needs one takedown to change absolutely everything. If they stays on the feet, Font picks him apart. If Matsumoto gets him down, Font is in some serious trouble. Font's hands are super, super clean. His jab is one of the sharpest in the game. He moves well. He throws crisp combinations. And when guys stand and trade with him, he usually makes them pay. In his fight against Adrian Yanez, that was a perfect example. He lit him up. You know, he had a first round knock, TKO, without ever letting Yanez get comfortable. You know, the problem is Font has never really had any real answer for guys who mix in wrestling. When Corey Sandhagen fought him, he got taken down over and over again and spent the whole fight stuck on his back. Davidson Figueiredo, who's way smaller, was able to out-wrestle him with ease. Font's takedown defense is bad, only 48%, and once he's on the ground, he struggles to get back up. If Matsumoto forces scrambles and drags him down, Font is going to have a really hard time keeping this fight where he wants it to be. Matsumoto is a very slick fighter with, especially in the grappling exchanges. You know, he's not an elite wrestler, but he doesn't really necessarily need to be. He just needs one opening to snatch a submission. This guy has 6 submission wins, and when guys give him space to work on the ground, he makes them pay for it. You know, against Brad Katona, he showed great composure and solid defense off of his back. And against Dan Argueta, he got taken down multiple times, but still found a deep guillotine and found a finish in the second round. Font has always had trouble with guys who mix in the striking with wrestling. Sandhagen, Figueiredo, even Marlon Vera, all of them were able to shut him down by forcing grappling exchanges. Matsumoto doesn't need to be the highest level of wrestler here. He just needs to get the fight to the ground once, I think, and once he does, he's a serious threat. Fonts will probably have early success landing his jab and controlling the range and making Matsumoto work to close the distance, but Matsumoto only needs one mistake to grab that neck, I think. But I think this was a tough, ultimately Font is always a tough fight. He's a super durable guy, so I'm going with decision. I think Matsumoto's young. I think he's dangerous. I think he's built for the future. I think he's only 25. That's a big 12-year gap here, and I know people are like, "What? You're against Font again?" And I mean, hey man, I think Matsumoto's going to be a champion in about 3 or 4 years. So I'm putting my money where my mouth is. And if he wants to get there, he needs to get past Font. He definitely does. I think this guy's nasty. I think he's really, really good, and he's only 25. Give me Matsumoto by decision. Up next on the card, we got the co-main event. We got Brenden Allen facing Anthony Hernandez. Brenden Allen comes into this 24-6. He opens up as a plus 225 underdog, 29 years old, 6'2" with a 75-inch reach. Anthony Fluffy Hernandez comes into this 13-2, opens up as a negative 285 favorite, 31 years old, 6'0" with a 75-inch reach. Now, I do want to mention that this is a rematch. They fought at LFA 32, Hernandez versus Allen. They actually were the main event, and Fluffy was able to win. He got a unanimous decision win. He got two judges to go 49-46, and one judge gave him a 50-45. He actually won the belt. But even with both guys making big improvements, this fight, I think it still favors Hernandez. Their first fight wasn't competitive at all. Hernandez completely dominated. Now they're both ranked in the UFC, and his style is still a nightmare for Allen. Allen is a very dangerous grappler, and when he gets guys down, he has some of the best submissions in the division. He's finished guys like Paul Craig, Bruno Silva, and Andre Muniz. And even if he gets your neck or your back, it's usually game over. His hands have definitely gotten better, but his wrestling still isn't great. If he can't get a clean takedown or a grab, a submission early, I think he's going to be in big trouble. Hernandez is an absolute machine. He fights with non-stop pressure, throws a ton of volume, and his wrestling is ridiculously good. He averages over 6 takedowns per fight. His pace is insane, and he showed against Michel Pereira that he just doesn't really slow down. He breaks guys down with a relentless pressure, and if he can't match his pace, I think he's going to drown. If you can't match his pace, I think he's going to drown him fast, drown you down fast, including Allen. Allen's best chance to win here is an early submission. His jiu-jitsu is dangerous, but if he gets on top or finds a scramble, he's got a legit shot at locking something up. The problem is Hernandez has already survived and submitted better grapplers. He choked out Rodolfo Vieira, which is legit, who's a way better wrestler than Allen. And every time Allen has fought guys with strong wrestling, he struggled. If he doesn't get a sub early, he's going to be in deep waters, I believe, and especially by the later rounds. Hernandez is built to beat guys like Allen. His chain wrestling, ridiculous pace, and nonstop pressure make him impossible for Allen to get comfortable. Even in their first fight, Allen had some reversals, but it didn't really matter. Hernandez just kept pushing forward and controlling the fight. Now, Fluffy's wrestling is even sharper. His striking is better, and his gas tank is one of the best in the division. And another huge problem for Allen is his cardio has always been shaky. He's gassed out hard against Imavov in that 3-rounder, and even in his win over Chris Curtis, his gas tank wasn't holding up great. I think if we see the same fighter that faced Imavov, I think it's going to be a really, really long night for him against Hernandez. Hernandez is just a better fighter everywhere outside of pure jiu-jitsu, and his pace wrestling, and I think even toughness are exactly what gave him trouble in the first place and what's given him trouble in the past. So I think you got to go with Hernandez by decision. I think he's got better wrestling. I think he's got better cardio. I just think he's just better everywhere besides the jiu-jitsu. And like I said, he dominated in the first fight, and this guy has just gotten better. So I'm taking Hernandez money line, negative 285, mixing with another parlay piece is super solid. I think the best bets include fight going the distance and Hernandez by decision, as well as the over. I don't really know what the over is at. I don't really know what the fight goes to decisions at, but I figure those definitely hit. Give me Anthony Hernandez by decision. Up next on the card, we got the main event of the night. We got Henry Cejudo facing Song Yadong. Cejudo comes into this 16-4, opens up as a plus 220 underdog, 38 years old, 5'4", 67.5-inch reach. Meanwhile, Song Yadong is 21-8-1, negative 270 at open, 27 years old, 5'8", with a 67-inch reach. I really feel like this fight is where the bantamweight division officially moves on from Cejudo. At one point, he was the ultimate competitor. He was an Olympic gold medalist. He was a double champ, the guy who retired on top. But I just don't think we have the same Henry anymore. Cejudo is still absolutely a very good fighter. His fight IQ is absolutely elite. His wrestling is extremely high level. And he's only lost to, great fighters like Sterling and Dvalishvili. But at this point, I just think he's a lot slower, a lot more hesitant. I just don't think he's as confident as he used to be. In that Aldo fight, it was just very weird. I know Sterling has a very awkward striking style, but Henry just looked very much confused. He didn't really want to pull the trigger even, and even though the fight was close, he doesn't look like the same Cejudo that we're used to, Of course not. He's 38 and he had a huge layoff. I think it was like 3 years. His biggest fight before that, I think, was like 5 years ago. Then against Merab, that was just a bad beatdown against Merab. And I know Merab is a beast, but he just outworked him and he pushed a crazy pace and he even out-wrestled him. And I just don't think Prime Cejudo would have ever been taken down that easily, even by Merab. And I just don't think he's built for this division anymore. I think the size difference is a really big issue here. I know Cejudo's bulked up. I just think he's just small for the weight class. And I think he's just struggles against bigger guys. And Song Yadong is just an absolute monster. His hands are crazy fast. He's got legit knockout power. And his wrestling has gotten a lot better. Against Peter Yan, he actually landed a takedown in round 1. And for anyone who doesn't know, Yan has one of the best takedown defenses at 135. Against Ricky Simone, he stuffed takedowns, stayed composed, and took over late. And every time he lands, his opponent feels it, So Cejudo, his technical striking is, he has technical striking for sure, but he just doesn't have the power like Song Yadong has, His punches don't carry the same impact, Song got the kind of power that makes you be very hesitant, eat at the counters, eat at the feints, And I just think this is going to be a big problem. I think the size difference is going to be a big problem. You got Cejudo at 5'4" with a 64-inch reach. Song Yadong at 5'8" with a 67-inch reach. I think that's a big difference here. Song is 4 inches taller. Cejudo had problems with Aldros' size, and I think that Saldo's just going to feel just as big, if not bigger, inside that cage. I think if Cejudo can get takedowns early, he can grind this fight out. Of course, Cejudo is a beast. Don't get me wrong. I just think he's way past his prime. He's 38 now, and this is coming from the guy who picked the 41-year-old last week, But I don't think you can back Cejudo in this one. Cejudo's a beast. I think it'll be a fun one. Though I think it'll be a fun 5 rounds. I do think it's going to go the distance. I wouldn't be surprised if Song Yadong gets a knockout, but I think Cejudo is extremely durable. Both of them are very durable at that, So I just got to take Song Yadong. I got to go with him by decision. I think the best bets include the over. The fight goes the distance. And Song Yadong, you're not getting a bad price tag at -280 here. Give me Song by decision. All right, guys, that's going to wrap up my breakdown for UFC Seattle, Song versus Cejudo. This card has a lot of interesting matchups, and I feel really good about the spots we've locked in so far. If you want access to all my bets, make sure to check out my Patreon, 7-day free trial. If you want to test out before committing, the link is in the bio. Also, if you enjoyed the breakdown, drop a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. Let me know in the comments below who your favorite picks are. Do you agree with me or do you disagree? Good luck on your bets. And remember, picks are not bets. Other than that, I'll see you in the next one.